Hi everyone, I'm Steve at the shop at the Woodturning store, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the Axminster Woodturning SK114 chuck package. If you're looking for a professional woodturning chuck, you'll want to check this out. So let's get started by taking a look at the box here. The first thing you notice is that it's a beautiful box, beautiful packaging. Lifting off the cover, you see that we have inside a few different cards. Right here in the front is the SK114 product information card, showing some safety features, parts list and parts diagram, and also some details about the SK114, actually entire Axminster Woodturning chuck line of accessory mounting jaws, how they come in and out, making chuck jaw changing easy, and we'll talk more about that later. Here we have the product warranty card. Axminster Woodturning makes a wonderful product right in their own machine shops in Axminster in England, in the United Kingdom. Everything is backed by a 5-year warranty. And also, as I mentioned earlier, another short card describing the accessory mounting jaws. What you'll notice is that there's no plastic in the packaging at all. Axminster Woodturning is environmentally friendly, nothing wasteful, entirely cardboard. So inside the box, first thing you notice is the SK114 chuck. It's a 4-jaw scroll chuck, 114 millimeters in diameter, or that's about 4.5 inches. Again, beautifully machined from a single piece of stainless steel. There are no inserts with the Axminster Woodturning chucks. No inserts like on other chucks, where this would come out and you plug in your own insert. Every chuck has its hub directly machined into the chuck body, guaranteeing minimum amount of runout. This particular case, it's a 1 1/4 by 8 threads per inch hub, 3 screws for reverse turning, and we'll talk about that a little more later. Moving along in the package, you see the C-type dovetail jaws, a screw chuck, which mounts inside the C-type dovetail jaws, as well as a faceplate ring, which will mount also on the C dovetail jaws. Down here, you'll see a standard length chuck key, square key drive, and lastly a bag which includes the 8 jaw screws for mounting your jaws, as well as a 4mm Allen key. Okay? Let's put this aside for a moment. I want to take a step back and talk about some of the history of Axminster Woodturning chucks. And Axminster started making chucks, I think it's about 35 years ago. And the original Axminster chuck was what they called a super precision chuck. It was modeled after a 3-jaw engineering or metalworking chuck. Once again, enclosed body. In this case, it had changeable back plates, 3 drives of the bevel gear. But what you'll notice here, again, what we call a scroll chuck is by turning one lever, all of the jaws move in and out in unison. Most metalworking chucks are 3-jaw self-centering scroll chucks, and that's because in metalworking, we're usually holding round stock. And 3 points can grip down perfectly on anything round. But what Axminster did with the super precision chuck is they decided to utilize a 4-jaw self-centering scroll chuck. Relatively uncommon. But again, 4 jaws, turn the chuck key, and all 4 jaws move in and out in unison. But metalworking chucks typically have what we call these engineer's jaws. 4 points in the center, 4 small surfaces. So if you're clamping down on something in compression mode, 4 points. If you're expanding into a recess, 4 relatively small surfaces. That doesn't work in woodworking because wood compresses unlike metal, aluminum, or steel. So these surfaces here are not enough to grab securely onto a wood piece. So what Axminster did was they took away these, what we call 1-piece jaws, and replaced them with 2-piece jaws. And what they did with 2-piece jaws is now they've designed dozens, actually I think it's almost 40 different jaws of different profiles which will mount onto the 2-piece jaws. This here happens to be what they call a gripper jaw. As you could see on the original super precision chuck, this is what they call the O'Donnell jaws, designed by Michael O'Donnell and still available today. A little bit different. These are the older ones made of steel. New ones are stainless. I'll put that aside. So let's go back to the chuck. What comes in the chuck package are what are called C-type dovetail jaws. And what does that look like? Okay, so if I look at the cross section of the jaw, on the exterior, I have a typical dovetail. That's this surface right over here. On the interior, I have a straight side with a little lip. So not a traditional dovetail, but it works as well, if not better. You still make your tenon, for example, on the bottom of a bowl. You can make a very slight dovetail. That's probably preferred, but you could also do it straight. And this lip here will bite into your piece. One of the really nice things about this lip is that it will act as a lock for some of the accessories that we'll talk about later, such as the screw chuck, faceplate, ring, and others. So let's go back to the chuck here, and let's look at the components of the chuck. You have 4, again, what are called accessory mounting jaws, turned by any of the chuck key gears to move in and out. And you'll see that the face of the chuck is numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. While the accessory mounting jaws are also numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's critical that the proper accessory mounting jaw is mounted in the corresponding slot or groove in the chuck. From there, you'll take your jaws. So again, in this case, I have what are called the C-type dovetail jaws. Dovetail on the exterior, little lip on the inside, and we're going to mount them onto the chuck body. It's also important to know that Axminster, all of their chuck jaws are compatible with each chuck model in their range. So, for example, I'll step back here and I'll show you 2 of their smaller chucks. So this here is the 100 millimeter SK114 chuck, and this is the 80 millimeter SK80 chuck. Now, each of these, the 114, the 100, and the 80, are offered in chuck packages with their own C-jaws. So for each of these cases, the C-jaw itself would be exactly the same, but the body size, the outer perimeter, outer diameter, would match the chuck. So here you see 100 millimeter C jaws. Here you see 114 millimeter C jaws. However, the 114 millimeter C jaws can mount onto the SK80 chuck. Now, maybe it's not ideal. As you can see, there's a little bit of overhang, but they will work. Most of the jaws in the range are designed around the 100 millimeter profile, so they will fit very nicely on the SK114 and also very nicely on the SK80. Okay, so now we're going to mount our C jaws onto our chuck. So 1 on 1, 2 on 2, 3, and 4. Unlike other jaws from other manufacturers, there's nothing on the back of the jaw that would indicate which jaw number it is. On some chucks, they have a groove here. Other manufacturers do it a different way. Nothing here on the Axminster. The preventing of the overexpansion of the jaws are done in a different way, and I'll show you that in a little while. So I'm going to take the 8 screws. What I like about these is that they're super strong. They're socket head cap screws, 4 millimeter Allen key. Actually, in the chuck package, you get this Allen key. You get this Allen key. I'm going to use my own T-handle because it's a little bit faster. And we will mount the 8 screws onto the 4 jaws. Okay, so that's it. Tighten them all up. I'll take this chuck off the lathe and I'll mount the one with the jaws on it. Actually, before I show you how I put this chuck on the lathe, let me take a minute and show you the other models that are available. At this time, we have 4 different models available of the SK114 chuck. Remember I said that they are all direct threaded, so there is no insert to swap. You need to purchase the chuck which suits the thread of your lathe spindle. So the one I've been working with has been the 1 1/4 by 8 left-hand thread. This is the most popular thread for full-size lathes in the United States. And again, this chuck here comes with a hub and a few 3 set screws, or called grub screws for reverse turning. The M33 version is available in 2 models. The M33 version is available in what we call reverse locking. Again, it has that hub, and the hub has the set screws, and we also have an M33 version without a hub. Why would you want this? Well, if you don't plan on turning in reverse, having the hub brings the chuck a little farther away from your lathe spindle shoulder. If you want maximum, or I should say minimum amount of run out, and you don't do reverse turning, and you have an M33, buy the chuck without the hub, and you'll be able to get the chuck that much closer to your spindle shoulder. And lastly, we have the 1 by 8 American thread. All left-handed, no right-handed threads are available. Let's take a close look at the 1 1/4 inch thread and how it fits on my robust American Beauty. So you'll see here on the American Beauty that it's 1 1/4 by 8 spindle, and it has a groove here which is designed to accept a grub screw for reverse turning. So as I put the chuck on the spindle and come down, turn it, you will see that this grub screw here lined up perfectly with that safety screw. If you have a lathe, which does not have the safety screw, and a lot of 1x8 lathes don't, that's why they don't offer it with the hub. But if your lathe does not have this safety screw, do not use the grub screws because you'll mash your threads. Okay? Let's put that back on. So I can show you the 2 accessories that are included with the chuck package. The first accessory that's included, once again, is the screw chuck. Unlike screw chucks in other lathe systems, which are grabbed right in here inside the center point of the jaws, the Axminster system uses the C-type jaws and that lip that we talked about, and the screw chuck mounts perfectly and is gripped around the entire circumference of the C jaws. The screw chuck, the screw itself is replaceable. It comes with what we call the medium screw, and 2 other sizes are available separately. Small screw, again, this is the medium, and a large version is available. There's also one, I don't have it here right now, but there's also a screw chuck with 3 tapped holes in here, which will give you a function similar to an Elio drive. Another accessory that's included in the SK114 package is a faceplate ring. So the faceplate ring is designed to essentially make your chuck like a faceplate. The faceplate here has 6 screws with countersunk. Each screw is countersunk. So you'd put in flathead screws, 6 of them into your piece. Let's say I have my bowl blank here. Bowl blank is here. Tighten down on the chuck jaws. Mount your piece with the faceplate ring over the closed jaws. Expand it. And you have perfect mated surface, incredible gripping power. So now I would have my bowl out here and be able to turn just like a faceplate. There are a few other accessories. Oh, by the way, there are faceplate rings for the other styles of Axminster jaws. There are a few more accessories that I should take a second and show you. Now, these are not included in the chuck package, but they're available separately. And this is a Morse taper. So some people don't have a Morse taper on their lathes, or they've gotten worn down over the years. So this here takes your chuck with the C-type jaws and converts it into a number 2 Morse taper. Again, available separately. And then you also have a 4-prong drive sold separately. This is an older one that I've had for a long, long time, but we sell brand new ones. Takes your chuck, turns it into a 4-prong drive for spindle turning. And the last accessory that I didn't bring out to show you, which is probably the most popular, I forgot, is the Axminster eccentric chuck. And we'll do a full video on that another time. Let me just show you one more thing. So, as I said, Axminster has just about 40 different chuck jaws. So there's no doubt that once you buy the Axminster chuck body, whatever it is, the SK114, the SK100, or the SK80, you will be purchasing additional jaws. Sometimes it's a little time consuming to remove 8 screws. So what Axminster does for you is we have accessory mounting jaws, which are what I showed you earlier, which you would buy. And for example, you'd have the accessory mounting jaws, and you would purchase them and mount them to the jaws that you use most frequently. So now, all you need to do is you take a look at your chuck, you get a look, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you start to back these chuck jaws out, keeping a hand on them so they don't fall out. The 4 will pop out first. So there's 4. Next is 3. Next is 2. Next is 1. Changing over to your next jaw set is as easy as cranking them in. This can get a little bit tricky. I'll show you a separate video on how to do it. So now that I have the 4 jaws out, it's pretty easy to take my new set of jaws, my second set of jaws with my accessory mounting jaws underneath, and I'll crank them in very quickly. I'll take a look here. Here's my number 1 jaw. I'll post a separate video on this. Before you see it done close up, it can be a little bit tricky, but we'll start off with the number 1 jaw, get that started, come around to the number 2 jaw. Here's number 2. Number 3. Number 4. And now we'll crank that in. So that's as quick as can be for switching jaws. If you're the type of person that has a lot of jaws, maybe you buy 3 or 4 accessory mounting jaws. Keep those handy. Axminster has jaw racks that you can mount in your shop for keeping them handy. The ones that you use less often, you'll take the time and change the 8 screws. One thing that Axminster added to the new series of SK114 and 114, which the old Super Precision Chucks didn't have, was a way to prevent the jaws from essentially you overextending or opening the jaws too far, and you run the risk of potentially a jaw coming out, which of course would be a really bad thing. What we can see in the back of the chuck, it's not going to be that easy to show you on the video, but we'll try. So, here's a different chuck than the one I have mounted on the lathe. It's a little bit hard to see, but if you look inside there, you can see that there's another socket head cap screw behind the number 4 jaw. If that socket head cap screw is installed, then if you try and extend the jaws out, they stop. They stop. Now, if I look closely here, you can see that the jaws are extended, can't go any farther, and you're completely protected from any jaw popping out. If you want to do what I did earlier, which is take these jaws out quickly, what you'll have to do is remove the set screw inside here. That, like I said, exposes you to potentially having the jaw fly out. But Axminster's thought of that, and what they've done, and again, this is described in, let's see, it's over here. Well, I don't have it, but this is actually under here. So this is described in the product card, and it's also described on this short little insert. If you have the socket head cap screw removed, again, you have the potential of the jaws coming out too far, causing a hazard. What Axminster has done is they have marked each jaw with a red dot. So if I start to back out the jaws, I'm going to look, where's my number 4 jaw? Okay, here's my number 4 jaw. I'm going to look, and if I start to see that red dot, once that red dot becomes visible, see, there's the first jaw. If I turn this around this way, and I turn this around this way, you start to see that the red dots are visible. So what I'm going to show you is, again, if I take out the safety screw, and for that you need your smaller Allen key, which is included in the bag here. Okay, so we'll get down in there. So we'll take out the socket head cap screw inside the chuck behind the number 4 jaw. There it is. Okay, so now these chuck jaws here can pop out. I will back them all the way out. So again, I am showing you this off the lathe just because it's a little bit easier with the camera. Okay, I'm completely safe. I don't see any, completely safe, don't see any of the red marks. As I continue to back out, once I start to see the red mark, which you can see here, that's starting to get into the danger zone. If I back out a little bit more, where that red mark is fully exposed, there it is, and now the jaw can pop out. So once you start to see that red mark, you're in the danger zone. The chuck key that I'm using happens to be the long chuck key, also available separately. I'm going to take the jaws out again. So here's number 4. Number 3. Number 2. Number 1. Come over here to my C jaws. Again, the original set provided with a chuck package. Get the number 1 jaw started. Number 2 jaw started. 3 jaw started. And again, as I said, I will publish a separate video on how to do this, maybe with some close-up camera angles. Okay, I can see the red dots and my jaws are secure, but you should be more careful than that. If you see any red dot, okay, so there we go. No red dots whatsoever. All of the jaws are securely in place. Once you get used to switching the jaws in and out, you'll never go back to removing the 8 jaw screws. Let's go back to the screw chuck here just to show you that. All right, I think I covered about everything. That's the Axminster SK114 114 millimeter or 4.5 inch chuck package, complete with faceplate ring, screw chuck, C-type dovetail jaws, available at the wood turning store. Thanks for watching.